This episode of the Sloopcast is brought to you by the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company is an Ohio-based company located in Cary, Ohio, where they usually say our seasoning will take your barbecue from good to great. The Mad Canadian Barbecue Company is now the official barbecue of the Cary High School Blue Devils. Be sure to check out the Mad Canadian and his food truck this week here. Their website is currently down, but check out his social media sites on where him and his food truck are going to next. This week, they will be in Cary, Ohio, the corner of North and Patterson on Wednesday, 4 to 7 p.m. This Thursday up in Upper Sandusky and down in the downtown section, Thursday at 4 to 7 p.m. And this Friday, back in Findlay, Ohio, over at Millstream Credit Union on Fostoria Avenue, Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Be sure to check out the social medias if you missed any of that to find out where he and his food truck are heading to next. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, where they have your butt covered.
This episode of these Loopcast also brought to you by the Iron Bean Coffee Company. Who the hell is that? Says no one who's ever heard this podcast before. They are a world-class, hand-roasted micro-batch coffee company. All of your beans are fresh roasted to order. There's no sitting around on shelves. There's no sitting around in the back of a warehouse. No. You buy it, it's roasted, it's shipped. They're based out of Perrysburg, Ohio, which is just outside of Toledo. All of their beans are fair trade certified and USDA organic. Integrity is at the core of what they do. So you can find a bunch of amazing coffees, and I'll talk about some of the coffees during our next ad read. But you can find all those coffees for yourself over at ironbeancoffee.com. That's Iron Bean Coffee, America's local coffee roaster.
What's going, everybody in YouTube? This is a section for those who aren't familiar. This section where we're playing music in our podcast form, but we have a little talk one-on-one here in the YouTube part.
Yeah, it's Ohio by the Black Keys if you just want to play it in your head.
Hope everyone had a good weekend. We had our week 0 college football this weekend. We're going to get right into football. Yeah. When we get into the actual football this Thursday. Well, technically Wednesday, but who cares? It's Thursday. Thursday's when football starts.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, let's get to it. We have a lot to do today. We've got barbecue back here. You're all invited. Welcome to the Sloopcast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing pretty well. How are you doing, Jared?
Kyle, there was football. Was it good football? No, but it was football.
It was football nonetheless.
I mean, sometimes you take football. Let's just do it right away. Nebraska lost to terrible Illinois. Therefore, we must now assume that Nebraska is terrible Nebraska. Scott Frost is done, right?
You know, I don't want to be that person like back in 2013 when they said, "Oh, Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech. They're out of conversation of the playoff system." But you know what? It's sure looking that way. I don't want to say he's out the door, but boy, that door sure is opened up for him right now to leave Nebraska.
Yeah. They haven't kicked him out of the door, but the door's open and he's bent over in front of it.
Yes. Yes, exactly. But man, that is just a terrible showing. What was it? Nebraska was like a 13-point favorite, something like that. And man, I would have thought Illinois scoring 30 points. Like that doesn't happen often in Illinois over the past few years here, but yeah, maybe it's the new coaching changes and all that's happening up in Champaign.
Well, the question always is, especially in a week 0 or week 1 situation, is X better than we thought or is Y worse than we thought? And right now I'm leaning towards Nebraska being worse than we thought. That's where I'm leaning right now, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. just some housekeeping up at the top of the show here. We will be releasing a Ohio State Minnesota preview on we're shooting for Wednesday morning. That's our goal. Kyle's got some travel stuff, so there's a possibility it doesn't come out until Thursday morning in case the travel stuff goes bad or whatever. But we are absolutely trying and hope to and expect to have the preview episode out Wednesday morning. Our schedule moving forward, not this week because the Thursday game makes things weird. Starting next week, we are moving to a smaller episode format. Essentially, we'll be doing 4 episodes a week. They will be shorter episodes, trying to sort of make things a little bit more bite-sized. So that's where we're moving. So we're going to do that 4 episodes next week and throughout the season. There will be a Wednesday episode, but that will be behind the Patreon wall. So that will just be for our supporters over at patreon.thesloopcast.com.
Yeah, one last thing before we move on here, Jared, about that Nebraska and Illinois game. I think Scott Frost needs to just abandon the passing game altogether and just run the ball. He was supposed to be like a run heavy type of offense, but Martinez, I like Martinez. I think he's a really good guy, but he's better on his feet than he is throwing that ball.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have additional thoughts, but let's move forward.
All right, cool. All right, just some tidbit notes here. Thayer Munford. We talked about who's going to get the Blocko this year, and we thought, oh, maybe it's somebody on the defensive side. Like we thought, like maybe Garrett.
Yeah,
we thought Garrett might have been a perfect candidate, but Thayer Munford is another great candidate. Unfortunately, he's on the offensive line, so he can't wear the 0 number, but he's going to wear a patch on his jersey to represent him receiving the Blocko status for this year.
Yeah, when because it sort of came up during Ask Sloopcast questions and whatnot during the course of the offseason. Hey, who's going to get the Blocko this year? Kyle and I said, I think on multiple episodes, that it would be between Thayer Munford and Haskell Garrett, but then we'd always say Haskell Garrett because Thayer Munford, because he's an offensive lineman, legally can't wear 0. Thayer Munford, I think, is every bit as deserving of that honor as Haskell Garrett is, maybe even more so. I mean, he's the player they chose. And so Kyle and I got that wrong, but for the right reasons. And
and I think in the future, I could see if they are stuck between 2 people, especially if they're offense and defensive side, you could see 2 Blockos potentially.
I'm not certain that we don't get a second. I think I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying I wouldn't be shocked if they came out and said, guess what? There's another one. And then it's Haskell Garrett. It's a possibility. I wouldn't say it's a likelihood by any means, but it's a possibility.
Maybe not this year with it being just days as we're recording, as this is being, released. We are 3 days from kickoff. So I'm going to say probably no to Garrett this year.
Well, Kyle, it's just the announcement though. Like it's not like, you know what I mean? Anyway, one more housekeeping item. If you want to be a part of the Sloop Picks, if you want to join our online Sloop Picks, you need to do so by Thursday. For obvious reasons. If you need information on how to join the Sloop Picks, join our Discord server. It is free. You can also find that information on our Patreon page, which is not free. But you can join our Discord server and just ask me or ask anyone. It's in the announcements page, but it might be a little bit buried at this point. So if you need anything, just jump on there, do at the Jared, and then there I'll be, and I'll answer your questions and give you your information. Kyle and I are moving further and further away from Twitter for reasons that are obvious to anyone who spends time on Twitter. And we're moving more and more into our Discord server. So if you want to come hang out with us, the Discord server is the best way to do that. Again, it's free. There's a premium section in there for the patrons, but the vast majority of it is free, and you'll have a perfectly good time in the free section.
Yep. All right. Other news here. Fortunate news with J.K. Dobbins. If anybody is watching preseason, J.K. Dobbins is going to be out for his second year in the NFL due to a torn ACL.
Yeah. He's a running back, and it happens, and it sucks. Luckily, he's fairly young, so he'll recover better than, say, if he did it at 27, 28. Which, by NFL running back standards is old, unfortunately. That's just the reality of playing running back in the NFL. But second year player, he'll recover. He did it in the preseason, which one sucks because it's a meaningless football game, but it's also good because he'll have plenty of time to recover for next year. So, it's a lot better than, blowing your ACL in October, November. So he'll be back next year. Once upon a time ago, blowing your ACL meant you were going to be lousy the next year as well. And if you go even further back, like back to the days of Gale Sayers, it means your career was over. Luckily, medical science and blah, blah, blah.
Yep. Not going to go too deep into this because there really isn't much to talk about, but Big Ten, ACC, and Pac-12 have formed an, in quotes, alliance together. Whatever that means, who knows? We're all speculating at this point, but I'm going to guess, and I think Jared agrees too, it's probably going to be more so for future game schedulings. But I mean, we saw like a day after there was already a USC and SEC matchup, LSU matchup.
Yeah, it's meaningless. Let's spend no more time on it because it honestly means nothing. I think it's more than anything else a political alliance that when it comes to like voting for a playoff expansion or voting for this or voting for that they're going to vote as a block, and therefore, because it's the Power Five, which could shrink to the Power Four, depending on what happens with the Big 12 over the next couple years. It just means that those three conferences are going to decide what's happening in college football, which is politically nice. But ultimately, from a football standpoint, I think it's pretty meaningless. So let's spend no more time on it.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have here?
I think it's time to get into the preview.
I think it is. All right. So a few episodes we talked about our Big Ten preview or the Big North Conference, however you want to word it. Today's episode, we're going to go over the other four Power Five conferences. So we'll go ahead and let me pull up our handy dandy, that's a notebook, but our handy dandy PDF we have here. And let's start, Jared, with the ACC.
Yeah. The ACC, I'm going to go ahead and call it a two-team conference. It's North Carolina. It's Clemson. Miami has a good quarterback. So they should be, in King. And so, they'll make some waves. They could pull an upset here or there. Outside of that, I think it's kind of a two-team conference.
No. 100%. I don't see anybody on the Atlantic side, which is the side that Clemson's on. I don't really see anybody really stepping up to compete against Clemson.
No.
North Carolina State will be average. Boston College will be a little bit better than they were last year. Florida State, Louisville, Wake Forest, Syracuse. I don't think they're going to be all that good this year then. Gangland, do you see North Carolina beating Clemson this year? I think they'll get a run for their money. When do they play them? Trying to find the schedule here. Do you have the schedule for Clemson and North Carolina here. Here we go. Looks like they don't play each other in the regular season. It's just going to be just in the potentially in the conference championship game. I like North Carolina's offense. I think I think how they've built their offense recently here, and you got the quarterback back. Mac Brown's just doing a heck of a job recruiting there. I really like the offense. Defense, they're okay, but they got to be better than okay to beat Clemson's offense. So I think overall, I think North Carolina will give Clemson a run for their money. At this point, I just don't see it right now.
I think their defense is better than you're giving them credit for. It's honestly, to me, the worst part about trying to beat Clemson, if you're North Carolina, is that your opportunity to do it comes at the end of the season. Clemson's had a lot of turnover. And you know, when we talk about Alabama and Ohio State and other programs, we say, you know, they don't rebuild, they reload. Well, can Clemson do that? Can Clemson reload the same way that Ohio State and Alabama can reload? And they have in the past. Will they continue to do that? Do they have their next quarterback in line? Is
Uiagalelei pretty good
that guy for them?
Yeah, he looked pretty good against that Notre Dame game last year.
So I think between Clemson being sort of down and North Carolina being sort of up, I think it's possible. I do. The problem with making that prediction is just that Clemson is so unknown. Because like I said, it's a new quarterback and it's a new running back and it's a fair amount of change along the offensive line, but their defense should be as great as ever. And they just have talent. You know what I mean? It's a lot like looking at Ohio.
I don't have an answer for them.
Did anyone else hear Alexa just right there? I have no idea what happened. Anyway, she doesn't know it's oh, you got to stop. Alexa, you got to stop. She doesn't know if Clemson's going to be any good either. Point is that their defense is going to be great. Their offense is going to have to deal with some turnover. And I think that the way they recruit, they should be fine. And therefore, I'm still going with Clemson as the ACC champion. But if Sam Howell is what we expect Sam Howell to be, then that will be a better conversation.
Yeah, nope, absolutely.
But I don't see Miami as a legitimate contender the way I think people want me to think that Miami is a legitimate contender.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't feel like we need to spend time on each of the other teams in the ACC.
No, hell no. Virginia Tech might be pretty decent this year. Boston College, I think, has some good momentum. Florida State still sucks. I don't feel like going any deeper than that. I think that's as deep as we need to go in the ACC.
Agreed. All right. So moving on to the next conference here. So I'm scrolling down here. Nope, not the Big Ten. We already did the Big Ten a few episodes ago.
You want to do a super quick Big Ten?
Sure.
Ohio State. All right, we're good.
All right, good job. All right, moving on.
Real Wisconsin, Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. Is that how you're feeling it?
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
If not Wisconsin, who?
Iowa?
Probably. Minnesota. I still like Minnesota. I think Minnesota's in the conversation. But I do think it's Wisconsin. And I actually like Minnesota as the number 2 team in the Big Ten West. Tom and I talked about this on the Saturday morning scoop. Anyway, if you're expecting the Ohio State Minnesota game to be 53-0, you're wrong.
Yep,
now,
agreed.
I don't think Minnesota's defense can hang with Ohio State's offense, but I do think Minnesota is going to score some points against Ohio State. Ultimately, I think Ohio State is fine because their offense should run all over and pass all over Minnesota's defense.
Yep. More on that on this preview episode coming up. All right. Big 12 conference here. Oklahoma. Yeah. Oklahoma and who else? Oklahoma and who else?
That's a great question. Who else? Is it Texas? Is Texas back, Kyle? It's just Big 12. The Big 12. Is Texas back?
Nope. Texas is not back. They were not any closer than they were under Tom Herman.
Okay. So we don't have like a East-West, Atlantic, whatever in the Big 12. So we just get to pick two teams. Who do you like in the Big 12 championship game?
I don't know.
Raleigh, we're doing a national preview. We're working through the conferences.
Yeah, I guess if I were to pick, probably Iowa State. I really don't like any other teams here because maybe TCU might have could be decent here. Definitely, I don't think Texas is worth it. Oklahoma State, no. Baylor, West Virginia, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Kansas. I don't see any of those teams either. So I would say between Iowa State and TCU.
I'm all on Iowa State this year. I think that they have a lot,
like I was last year.
I think Kyle loves his weather teams.
Yes.
Iowa State has a lot of great returning talent this year. It's sort of like with UNC. What do you get out of the quarterback? Is Brock Purdy as good as we expect him to be? And if so, I just don't even see TCU competing for that second. I don't see anyone's competing for that second spot. Two best quarterbacks in the conference are Spencer Rattler and Brock Purdy. So the question then becomes, if there's not a clear number 3, right? If it's absolutely number 1, number 2 in the Big 12, which I think it is that fair? Do you agree, Kyle?
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's our Big 12 championship game. The question then becomes, does Iowa State stand a chance? Because it's Oklahoma and everyone else in the Big 12. It's been like that for years now.
I know. I think Iowa State, the more I look at it, the more I do like Iowa State more. Just what you mentioned before, returning productivity on offense and defense too.
I'm sleeping on TCU girls.
They're returning a lot on that defense too, and the way that they play their defense too, it's set to stop the pass heavy type of offenses like Oklahoma too. So yeah, don't sleep on Iowa State. I think they'll definitely give a run for Oklahoma's money this season.
So Gangland says he thinks that Oklahoma's defense will be a lot better. Has a lot better defense than they have in the past, but I don't think they have enough. So I think they have enough absolutely to dominate the Big 12. I think their defense is good enough to do that. And I don't think you disagree with that statement. I think you absolutely agree with that statement. Now, if you're saying, is their defense improved enough to actually make an impact in the playoffs? We'll get there. We're getting there. We'll get there a little bit later in the show. So the question right now, Big 12, I think they can lock down 75% of the conference. ISU and the rest, I don't know. TCU is talented enough on offense to make it interesting. I don't know if it goes any deeper than that. Texas Tech's defense is terrible. Maybe they have enough on offense to make it look interesting or fun. But I think what used to be like this huge, wide open pass all over the place conference looks a little offensively weak this year, in my opinion. Again, I think that the two quarterbacks are the two quarterbacks, period.
Yep.
And I don't think Spencer. We did a bit of a Patreon meetup this past weekend, and I was talking to Nomad about this, and also Austin and Brawls as well. That while I think Spencer Rattler's good, I'm not saying he's bad. I think that he's not as good as he thinks he is. And I don't think he's on the same level as the Oklahoma quarterbacks that we've seen in recent years. I don't think he's as good as Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's as good as Baker Mayfield. I don't think he's as good as help me, the guy in between, playing in Arizona. Someone help me. Spacing on his name. Murray, thank you. So, I don't know. That's Nomad with the not hot take. I don't know. I feel like nationally people are like, oh, Spencer Rattler. And I get that when he's played, he's not looked great. So he's not super hyped, but I think people are still expecting like an Oklahoma quarterback type season out of him. And I don't see it. I don't see it at all. The good news is that he has a ton of talent around him and in front of him. Oklahoma's offense is still going to be amazing, and Rattler's absolutely good enough to lead that offense to a Big 12 title. But can they go further than that? I think is the question. That will be the big question for all time with Oklahoma until they actually win a playoff game.
Biggest question for the Big 12. Will Kansas win one game this year?
With like in conference play?
No, just one game period.
Do you have their schedule?
I do.
Oh, okay, let's do it.
So I'm going to assume they lose every game in the Big 12.
I mean, probably, yeah.
So they're out of conference
There's
games.
Some other really bad Big 12 teams. I think Texas Tech's terrible. I think there's a couple other really bad teams.
Yeah. They play at Duke. They play at Coastal Carolina, and they play one of the toughest, if not the toughest, FCS teams, South Dakota.
Okay, they're definitely losing to South Dakota. They're definitely losing to Coastal Carolina. That's a pretty good. Are they are they Sunbelt?
I think
Coastal Carolina, are they Sunbelt?
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, and I think they'll lose to Duke as well.
Yeah, I think.
Will they win one game this year?
I mean, I feel like they will because they'll win a game. I think in the Big 12, just because someone's going to sleepwalk into the game, and like it's just going to be the other team screwing it up. Maybe it's against West Virginia. Maybe it's against Texas. So they have Texas Tech coming off of a bye. So they get a week to game plan against a terrible Texas Tech team. Maybe they pull an upset. And don't get me wrong, it would be an upset. And don't get me wrong, Kansas is terrible. But I think that they win a conference game this year. And if I had to pick one, I'd say Texas Tech. But I think that they win a Big 12 game. I think that they pull an upset, win a Big 12 game.
All right. All right. Before we go to the last two conferences, let's go and hear from our sponsors, Jared. Let's go and start off with our good friends up in Perrysburg, Ohio, the Iron Bean Coffee Company.
Oh, threw me a curveball there. I was expecting you to go with your read. So Iron Bean Coffee, we talked about Iron Bean Coffee in the first ad read about how they're organic and Ohio-based and roast to order and all that stuff. We already did all that. Let's talk about some of the individual coffees. There is the Ride or Die, which is a gentle and distinctive version of the American classic breakfast cup. It's a Brazilian yellow bourbon bean, has superb smoothness and flavor. There's another medium roast would be the cast iron. The cast iron medium roast, 100% single origin Arabica beans. Another medium roast would be the Rage Against the Dying of the Light. It has notes of cherry and milk chocolate. It has a medium body with a long finish. Has really, this one smells great. It has great aroma. The Rocco, which is available in both medium and dark, which is a Ethiopian natural. And then there's the Loki, which is a medium light. It's a wet process blend, higher in caffeine than you might expect from a light blend. It's still low in acidity, still very rich tasting. Has citrus and floral notes, and it's one of my absolute favorite like light blends I've ever had, period, anywhere of all time. So you can check out all those coffees and more over at ironbeancoffee.com. That's Iron Bean Coffee, America's local coffee roaster.
This episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. The Mad Canadian wants me to tell you all that apologize for the website being down for so long here. They're just working through a few kinks with some of their vendors and what they want to do with their seasoning. So just hang tight until they are able to get the site up with our favorite seasonings moving forward. But in the meantime, check out where him and his food trucks are heading to next. If you still want some of those great seasonings you've run out, or you want to try some of that good old Mad Canadian barbecue food straight from the bus that he's transformed, check out social medias on where him and his food truck are going to next. Mentioned before, Wednesday he'll be in Cary, Ohio, the corner of North and Patterson. Thursday afternoon he'll be in Upper Sandusky in the downtown section. And Friday, he'll be back in Northwest Ohio, back in Findlay at the Millstream Credit Union on Fostoria Avenue for lunchtime. So be sure to check those out and any other announcements over at the Mad Canadians social medias at Twitter, Facebook, where you can find out where him and his food truck are heading to next. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, where they are now the official barbecue of the Cary High School Blue Devils.
I almost went right into my ad read again, just because like my brain doesn't work some days.
No worries. All right, Jared, moving on to Pac-12 After Dark.
It's easy for you to say. It's not your brain. I worry about me sometimes.
So the Pac-12 here is a very interesting, probably the most interesting in terms of who's going to come out on top.
Kyle, I demand that you define interesting.
Interesting in terms of knowing who's going to win that conference, because all the other conferences is like you can pick one or two teams.
My thoughts exactly, Gangland.
With the Pac-12, there could be more than two teams that you can think of that could win that conference.
So your definition of interesting is a wash of mediocrity. Mediocrity? Yes. Mediocrity? I don't know. I disagree. I think that there's a clear favorite in the North and the South.
All right. And who is that? The North, I would give it to the Ducks.
Yes.
Now the South, I could see 3, maybe 4, but I mean, UCLA played Hawaii, which Hawaii is a bad team, right. But UCLA took care of business. So 3, possibly 4. I'll stick with 3 teams in the South that I could pick from.
I think it's Utah. It's totally Utah to me. I know Arizona State has a lot of talent, but they cheated. Like, they cheated to get that talent. There's a big storm cloud over that program right now. Are they a strong enough program to overcome oncoming sanctions? No, they aren't. They're Arizona State. So I don't know if they survive that. If they just survive having all of that, and like Jaden Daniels is a great quarterback, I think he'll get a chance in the NFL. But I just don't see it. I don't see it. Utah to me feels like they're not a spectacular team, but they have a really good defense. And enough talent on offense to win what is a really crappy division. That's just how I feel about it. I'd much rather have Utah than anyone else in the South, but I mean, as far as Brawls is going all in on UCLA. It's another thing I talked about on the morning scoop on Saturday. Was or did we, or was that a conversation Tom and I had before we turned the mics on? I don't remember. But that UCLA is, or rather, Chip Kelly is, if you look at him and Scott Frost and you put their resumes at their new homes side by side, where's the difference? If you're talking about Scott Frost having a really tough start at his new school, you have to also talk about Chip Kelly having a real rough start at his new school. And add on top of that, the fact that the Big Ten is a lot better. Nebraska's facing a lot tougher teams than is UCLA in the Pac-12. Now, one of the big differences is that Scott Frost lost this past weekend and Chip Kelly didn't. But again, it's Hawaii. It is just Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm just going to go through some of the teams here. So Oregon, yeah, I think is the clear favorite right now. Will they win it?
Brawley, I saw that after.
I think they should, but man, I think Oregon's really set up to make a run this year. They're returning a lot of productivity, both offensive and defense here. Their schedule is very favorable, where they play Fresno State and they play an FCS school as well. But they do have to go on over to Columbus in that second week, which we're all very excited for.
But if we're sticking within the realms of like winning the Pac-12, though, that game doesn't count.
Yeah. Yes. Now, Washington returns even more players than Oregon does on offense, and I really like Washington in terms of how they're going to play this year. I think they'll definitely give Oregon a run for their money here, but definitely don't sleep on Washington there. But for everybody else in that North division there, Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State. Yeah, I wouldn't even count them towards trying to winning the division there.
Interesting conversation happening in the live chat right now. Gangland and Brawley asking essentially who's worse, Illinois or Hawaii, is essentially the conversation happening right now.
I would say Hawaii
Brawley
right now,
says,
just
you
because
can't
Illinois
tell me
did
Illinois is favored massively over the Rainbow Warriors. Gangland guessed -2.5, which isn't massive. So
after this weekend, I think you might change that up to maybe 4 or 5.5.
Oh, maybe. So yeah, Ohio State plays Oregon. Oregon plays Ohio State, which plays into the national picture a lot more than it plays into the Pac-12 picture. So Pac-12 North, Washington's not going to be bad. They're going to have a good defense. If Oregon falls apart, Washington will be there to take over that conference. I think they are absolutely, clearly, undoubtedly the second best team in the Pac-12 North. Is that fair, Kyle? Is there like a clear tier 1, a clear tier 2, and then a wash of nonsense after that?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
So that does make it a little bit more interesting in the South, where, as you were saying, that second tier of team, Arizona State, USC, UCLA, is a lot better than the second tier in the North. So yeah, it's also a lot more likely that one of those teams comes forward and potentially challenges Utah. Whereas, yeah, I think Oregon's clearly the best team, not just in their division, but Kyle, also in the Pac-12 in general. Is that fair, or can we predict Pac-12 champion Oregon?
Yeah, I would say Pac-12 at this point. Pac-12 champion would be Oregon. They just got to prove it on the field right now. I know that they've won the Pac-12 back-to-back years now, but
Does last
I
year
don't know.
really count?
It just something about Oregon and the postseason that just does not sit well with me.
I agree. I'm going Utah, but if we're predicting the Big 12 championship game, I'm going Oregon over Utah. Are you going with Utah? Or are you going with one of those other teams?
Yeah, I think I would have to stick with Utah. I know a lot of people like Herm Edwards, but
the cloud, I would be on that board if it weren't for the cloud hanging over the program with all of the nonsense going on.
Yep. But don't sleep on USC as well. USC has had some pretty decent recruiting years here. So they're about due for some of those really good recruits to really pop up right now. So don't sleep on USC this year.
USC is kind of like typical LA USC right now. They got a really good quarterback in Slavis. If he lives up to his potential, good running backs, good wide receivers, but so all of their glamour positions are doing really well. I just don't know what happens after that. Subpar offensive line, average at best defense. I don't know what to do with USC when they go to face really good talent.
They need to get back to what they have been good when they were successful. That's pounding the rock. They were one of the worst teams last year running the ball. They need to get back to their roots and being able to pound that rock.
And they have talent at running back. I just don't know if they have any talent in their slob room.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Are we ready to move on to the SEC?
Yep. Let's move on to the SAC.
SAC?
All right. So you want to do the easier division here? The East?
Is East easier?
I want to say East is easier.
I think both conferences have clear top twos. Is that fair?
Each division or just the conference as a whole?
Excuse me. Each division within the conference have clear top twos.
I wouldn't say so, but I'll let you start.
Okay. I think in the East, it's clearly Georgia, Florida, and everybody else. I don't like anyone else in the East whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
In the West, it's Bama, it's Texas A&M. LSU has talent, but So yeah, it's Alabama, it's Texas A&M, and then just everybody else. I don't see anything worth note happening in the SEC outside of those four teams. I just don't see it. I think Texas A&M could potentially challenge Bama this year because Bama's turning over a lot of talent. I think Florida could overtake Georgia this year, but I don't feel nearly as good about saying that as I do about Texas A&M. Florida lost a lot last year as well. Georgia, I have a general lack of faith in Georgia when it comes to big games and sort of getting to that next level. So I don't know. If I had to rank those four teams, I would probably put both of the SEC West teams ahead of both of the SEC East teams. Kyle, rank them. For your four favorite teams in the SEC, rank them.
All right. So number one be Alabama, 2 Georgia, 3 Texas A&M, and then 4 LSU.
That's a great question, Gangland, by the way. I'm sorry, Kyle. Could you say that again? I was reading the chat.
Bama, Georgia, Texas A&M, and then LSU.
Really? You like LSU that much?
I like them over Florida. Yeah, Florida, excuse me, Florida, just like you said, just lost too much on that offensive side there. It's just, I mean, I have Florida as my 5th best in the SEC, but like you said, that you had like two favorites in each of the division. It's 2 for me on the West, Alabama, Texas A&M, and then it's Georgia 1, Florida 2, and then everybody else in the C section. Then I think there's a clear separation from Georgia to Florida and then to everybody else from there.
Okay, Kyle. So I think what we're figuring out here is that there's a clear top 3 teams.
Yes.
Because you're not wrong with your criticism of Georgia. And when I tell you that you like LSU too much, I don't think I'm wrong either. So maybe it's actually a top 3. Maybe now that we talk about it, it's actually a top 3. Gangland asked a great question. Yeah, but does Texas A&M have the quarterback to do it? Great question. I don't know. It's a huge question mark for them right now. I don't know. Do they? It's a great. When it comes to college football, one of the reasons why we're giving North Carolina a chance is because of their quarterback. One of the reasons why we might be a little slow on Oklahoma from a national perspective, or a little bit slow on a who else were we saying? Clemson. Is Uyunglele the guy? One of the reasons we're a little bit slow there is because of the quarterback. So it's all about quarterback, and Texas A&M. It's not bad. It's just a question mark. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing that if you go to other podcasts outside of Ohio State, they're going to say the same thing with Ohio State. Now you got question mark Ohio State.
No. I do not accept that. CJ Stroud.
I've heard it.
CJ Stroud is a hair away from being a 5-star quarterback.
I understand. Yes. And I'm not here to say you're wrong or anything. I'm just saying that the same kind of criticism that we're giving to like Texas A&M has some good quarterbacks. They're on the same level as CJ Stroud. Not going to say that, but I think they're going to have good enough quarterbacks to be a potentially top 5-6 team when this is all said and done.
Yeah, I can't get on that. It's not the same. It's not the same because when Oklahoma replaces a quarterback, when Clemson replaces a quarterback, we basically start from the perspective of they're probably going to be good, but what if they aren't? And we don't give that same pass. We don't give that same flexibility to Texas A&M. They don't have that history. Kellen Mond is nothing special. He was never anything special. Texas A&M does not get that sort of pass to me.
Okay. All right. We'll disagree there, but everybody else, including what No Bad was asked, it's can we get an Arkansas at Kansas for cellar dweller rights? I think that belongs to just Kansas.
What about Arkansas? What are we talking about?
Being the cellar dweller rights.
No, not even close. They're not even the worst team in the SEC West. That's Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And then there's Vanderbilt, which is just what is Vanderbilt even doing in the SEC? Seriously, what is Vanderbilt doing in the SEC? They stick out like a sore thumb.
What's Tennessee doing in the SEC?
Well, yeah, I get that it's money nomad, but it just culturally does not fit at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're such a Big Ten. They're such a Big Ten school. Let's just say it. Vanderbilt is such a Big Ten school.
So, Alabama and Georgia, who do you got coming out of here then?
I hate to say it, I do. It's Alabama, Georgia. I really, really want to make the case for Texas A&M, and if they surprise me at quarterback, if they get a lot more performance out of the quarterback position than we're expecting, then I think they can challenge Alabama. I do. I think that it's certainly possible. I just don't see it. So I have to go with the boring answer and say Bama and Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, if one thing that Alabama has over Georgia, that's going to be experience and return productivity for Georgia, because Alabama has only a third of their productivity returning from last year, one of the worst coming into the 2021 season. But Alabama reloads, so
it doesn't matter.
It's not going to matter, though. But it is something to keep an eye out to see how well Alabama can reload all those players again this year.
All right, Kyle. So who wins? SEC championship game, Atlanta, Georgia, Bama, Georgia.
It's Alabama until you prove me wrong.
Yeah. Alabama until it's not. As long as Saban's there, and even honestly, with the amount of talent that Saban continues to stockpile, even 3 or 4 years after Saban leaves, it's Bama till it's not.
All right. What other team I want to cover here? Just they don't belong to a conference, but what about Notre Dame?
I've slotted them into the ACC for now. It's fine. I think that they can be a player in the playoff conversation, but I don't think that they make it.
Yeah. They got to be real careful heading into end of September, beginning of October here. Do not sleep on them. They're playing in Chicago to take on Wisconsin, and then they're hosting the Fighting Fickles in the first weekend of October. So watch out for Notre Dame. Notre Dame can't sleep on those two teams there. That's really tough. Yeah, looking at their schedule, wow. Wisconsin, Cincinnati, at Virginia Tech. Then they have a bye week. Then they play USC, then UNC. That's a tough middle schedule there.
Say whatever you want to say about Notre Dame. I mean, literally, there's lots of things you can say about Notre Dame. Never say that they don't schedule tough.
And they open the season at Florida State. Florida State's not that good this year, but
that's
heading down to Tallahassee still.
Oh, that's a part of their scheduling agreement. That's essentially like a conference game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right, Kyle. So that's all 5 of the Power 5 conferences. You brought up Notre Dame. Do you see anyone else outside of the Power 5 in the playoff conversation?
The only way that would be Cincinnati, and they would win all their tough games. They have some who they play. Just mentioned Notre Dame, and I think they play Indiana as well. If for some reason they win both of those games, and they take care of business in conference, I don't know how you can't leave out Cincinnati then.
I mean, I do. But, okay, so Cincinnati's in the conversation. Okay. Who are your 4 playoff teams, and who are your 5th and 6th?
Oh boy.
Rank them. Top 6.
All right. Right now I would put Alabama 1.
It's Alabama until it's not. It is the reality we live in.
Yep, it is Alabama until it's not. I'll put Ohio State just because of how great of an offense Ohio State has right now. Just kind of look at Alabama last year. That doesn't matter who you go up against. The offense just rolls. That's how I think of Ohio State this year. Number 3.
Real quick, before you say number 3, did we ever say who we thought was going to win the ACC? Because I feel like it's a very pertinent conversation right now.
Clemson. Yeah, Clemson.
Okay. So is Clemson number 3?
Yeah, I have Clemson number 3. And then that number 4 is going to be really interesting. Like, could it be I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. Could it be another SEC school? Could it be Georgia at that number 4 spot?
It's got to be Oklahoma, right?
It could maybe Oklahoma. If Oklahoma loses one game and they're a conference championship champion, Oklahoma goes in there. And some people here, including the stats that we're looking at here, they really have UNC in there as well.
Yeah, but if UNC, so if let's fantasy world. You have, we're already doing playoff scenarios. This is great. UNC and Clemson undefeated all the way up until the ACC title game, right?
Yep.
This is bullshit. I'm going to say it right now. This is bullshit. If UNC wins and the game's close and competitive and all of that, then you could see both UNC and Clemson get into the playoff. But if Clemson wins, I don't think you get UNC as a second ACC team. And that's not fair, and it's bullshit, and all of that I acknowledge.
But especially looking at Clemson's schedule right now,
Nomad,
Clemson's schedule is horrific. Other than, well, I should say horrific. I take that back. They do play Georgia the first game. They do play Georgia. So I guess I should not say horrific. But all the other games that Clemson plays is horrific.
Okay, but they play all of their conference games, and they're participating in probably the best out-of-conference game in the entire country?
Yeah.
What else do you want them to do?
That's fair. Have the ACC be better?
Yeah, it's not their fault that the ACC is terrible, and it's not their fault that they didn't get the cross-divisional game with North Carolina. And they'll play North Carolina, so probably.
Yep.
Thanks, Nomad.
All right. Yeah, I think that's it, Jared. I don't think we got anything else other than some Ask Sloopcast questions.
Don't I get to do my 4 teams?
Well, do it then already.
Bama 1, because it's Bama till it's not. Ohio State number 2. I am going to go Clemson number 3. I really want to say UNC. I do. I really, really do. I do. But it's Clemson number 3 because, guys, that's just the math. I'm sorry. I believe there's an insane stat where all of the playoff spots have gone to like one of 4 teams, except for a small number. And those 4 teams are Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma. And that's exactly what the playoff is going to be again this year. And I get that that's a boring answer. And I get that a lot of people don't want that. But that's how I see it shaking out. That's how I see it shaking out. It's number 1, Alabama, number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Clemson, number 4. It might be number 2. It doesn't matter. I think Ohio State and Clemson are going to be 2 and 3. If they beat Georgia, that's of course, Ohio State will beat Oregon in this scenario. So yeah, they'll both have really nice out of conference wins. And then that 4th spot goes to Oklahoma. So I think it's Ohio State and Clemson playing once again in the playoff, and it'll be Bama and Oklahoma playing once again in the playoff.
Yep. Just had a conversation with a coworker asking me what I think the playoffs will be this year. And I said, remember what last year's was? Yeah, probably about the same.
Probably about the same. And Kyle and I, one of the things we're using to reference this episode right now is the Pick 6 preview guide, right? He has Oklahoma number 1 into the playoffs, Georgia number 2, North Carolina number 4, Georgia number 2, Ohio State number 3, North Carolina number 4. And I really want that just from a let's shake it up and get some different teams in here standpoint. I just don't see it.
Yep. Agreed. All right, let's get into some questions real quick here. We're coming up on the hour mark here. So let us start with Duncan. Duncan from the Discord. I know we can't even begin to predict what the committee would do if something were to happen, like if Ohio State has to forfeit to Maryland, Illinois, would that loss be considered, or would the country collectively shrug it off? That's actually a really good question.
Yeah, one of the things
counts as a loss, but then you wouldn't have that eyeball test,
right,
of that game.
I think that's a great question. I'd say one of the benefits here is that Ohio State, their football team, either is or will be 100% vaccinated. So that's a huge help. If you don't know, Ohio State as the university made vaccinations mandatory for students. So Ohio State's going to be 100% vaccinated. That helps. Now, does 100% that? No, it doesn't. It's not a 100% effective, especially because of variants and yada, 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 stuff we don't want to talk about anymore. I get it.
Yep. But yeah, I hope not, because like last year, those games were not Ohio State's fault. Both games that Ohio State couldn't have played weren't Ohio State's fault. So,
well, Ohio State canceled one of them. I think it was against.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it was Michigan canceled Ohio State, Michigan, but I think Ohio State canceled. Was it Maryland? Anyone in the Illinois? Was it Illinois?
Illinois. That's okay. Right. You're right. It was Illinois. Yep. You're right. But this year will be really
other turtle-based game. We have two turtle-based games.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer this question. I hope not. I hope not. But at the end, if you're going to have to decide between 2 or 3 teams,
it's a terrapin gangland.
If you have like 2 or 3 teams that have the same record, and you're trying to figure out which of these between these 3 teams that are going to make that final spot, you might give it to the team that played, and if it was a close loss, you might have to give it to them then.
Yeah, and but in case anyone doesn't know this rule is universal across not that it is universal, but all the conferences have adopted this, that if you have to cancel due to COVID, you lose. That's not just a Big Ten thing. All of the major conferences at least have done it. So it's a very interesting question. I don't know the answer to it. I feel like the commissioners, not the commissioners, the committee are going to put who they feel the best for in.
Mm-hmm. All right. Kabuto, with the new Big Ten, Pac-12, ACC alliances, that officially make the SEC an evil access power, so we can have an access versus allies. And what does that make Greg Sankey?
I'm not answering that last part. This alliance means nothing to me. I get what I get it. But the alliance means nothing to me. They didn't even sign a contract. Guys, they didn't even sign a contract.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything until something actually does happen. If, yeah. All right, Nomad asking an important question here. Over and under, Jared. On amount of games, Kyle beats Jared in the sloop picks. He has it at 7, so 7.5.
Under. I'm winning again. I'm making it 2 in a row, y'all.
Oof. See, guys, he wins 1 out of the 6 Sloopcast picks, and he's already getting it over his head here.
Listen, have you won more of them? Yes. Have I won the most recent one? Also, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Austin Formation. Best beer to have when knocking back some cold ones with the boys.
So I got to knock back some cold ones with some of the Patreon supporters. We went to Pins Mechanical downtown Columbus, and I was drinking Wolf's Ridge the entire time. I drank their Clear Sky coffee ale the entire time. I had a few of those in some tall glasses. So I guess that has to rank pretty high on the board.
I don't know. Maybe since September is coming around here.
Ooh.
Maybe knock back some Oktoberfest.
Some Oktoberfest, yeah.
I'm waiting. I see them on the shelves. I'm seeing them, but I'm waiting until September to do that.
Kyle, I buy them, and I'm just letting you know, because especially if it's a small brewery, they're probably only going to make X number of cans. So them showing up early means that they're going to be gone early. So
Right.
buy them.
All right. So you're editing this while I go and get some beer then, right?
Yeah. Which is
Right.
how we always do it.
Yeah. Nomad again here. Do we see Ohio State play a lot of base defense schemes in week 1 to let the secondary get settled in?
That's a great question. And I think you see a lot of base secondary anyway, simply because Minnesota is it's a big team. It's going to be a run heavy team. So
it's a Big Ten matchup.
Yeah, it's a size based team. They're big, excellent offensive line. You'll see a lot of like what's Ohio State's linebackers going to do. Like I said, it's a good offensive line, good running game. Their passing game isn't anything special. It shouldn't be. They have a good quarterback, but not a lot of talent as far as pass catchers go. So we'll see, but their primary offensive threat will be running the ball. So I think you do see a lot of base, even if it's not for the reason you suggested. I still think it's what we see. Also, what even is base anymore? Is there a base defense nowadays? I'm not even sure, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Buckeye Zach, what are we looking up? Similar question here. What are we looking for in the scheme for linebackers for week 1? I think just like what Jared said, I think we're going to see a 4-3 defense. You're going to get three linebackers in there just because of the type of offense we're going to see in Minnesota. It's just going to be a run heavy type of offense. So I think we'll see 3 linebackers in.
Or even if it's 2 linebackers, the bullet will be one of their bigger bullet guys, like a Craig Young.
Yep. Agreed. Another question from Nomad. Is Scott Frost done? Does Illinois coach Mama June after them back? Have them back.
I talked about this again on Saturday with Tom Moore on the Morning Scoop. Because we were talking theoretically at that point, but it's like, can Scott, if Scott Frost loses to Illinois, which he did, is he done at Nebraska? And my answer, that's what Tom asked me, and my answer at the time was, 1, I don't feel like they fire him right away. I feel like he's going to continue the season. He'll finish the season. But I don't envision Nebraska having enough success to dig out of that hole. He is now in such a deep hole that I just don't see the rest of their season going well enough to get out of the well. That's it. So I do think he's done, because I just don't envision Nebraska recovering in the way that they would need to save his job.
On the flip side with Illinois, Buckeye Zach asks, is Bert the savior that will put Illinois into future mid-tier greatness?
No. I'm not going to overreact after one game. I'm not going to do it.
All right. Big win for Illinois, but we'll see how they fare moving on to the season. Any other questions you want to answer here?
I don't even have the show notes up into that area, so I'm just going to have to trust you.
All right. No, I think that's it. I think that's all we have for today's episode. We'll see everybody here hopefully Wednesday. Hopefully, depends on what time I can get back from my adventure trip, and hopefully get to see everybody back here on Wednesday. Tuesday if you're a fellow Patreon.
Yeah. And speaking of the devil, there's Buckeye Zach down in the live chat. And yeah, I guess that's it. So if anyone just subscribe to all the stuff, I think, just because we're going to be doing a new sort of release schedule, make sure to just subscribe to the podcast so you have us just automatically downloaded to your phone. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Buckeye Scoop YouTube channel. And you'll get buttons if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll get buttons at the end of the show where you can click and do that. And I think yeah, and if you want to listen to the Patreon only episode that will be on Wednesdays, subscribe to our Patreon. The bonus episode will be available at the $3 tier, but know that you can you can give us more if you want to give us more, but it'll be as cheap as $3 a month. That is not like per episode or anything like that. And if you do, if you pay for 12 months up front, you save, I want to say it's something like 12%. So that's even less than $3 a month if you choose to do it that way. Kyle, do you have anything in Kyle's corner?
Just one thing. Hell is real, Jared.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Hell is real.
To be.
Crew makes a great comeback to beat their in-state rival, FC Cincinnati, 3-2. And that first goal, Jared, I don't know if you watched the game, but that first goal from Lucas.
Homie, I was at the game.
Well, then how did you like that goal? That first goal from Lucas?
It was like national tier placement. It was. This has to be his last year in Columbus, right?
Yeah, like if you put a bullseye in each corner of the goalpost there, he would have just nailed that bullseye there. Couldn't ask it any better placement. Beautiful. But yeah, hopefully this is the start of a turnaround for the Crew here. They were in a bit of a slump here, so hopefully this is the game that gets them turned around.
A bit of a slump. As a 5-game losing streak.
Yes. Put more salt into the wound. There is the worst losing streak in Crew history.
There you go.
All right, that's it here. I know in Ohio versus Michigan battle, I know there's a Little League World Series going on, but that'll be finished by the time this gets posted. So
also, it's baseball.
It is baseball. It's maybe the only time we mentioned baseball. So who in our Patreons is the baseball guru?
Oh, we have a few. Gangland, Nomad, Austin, I know all really like baseball.
Yeah. Well, this was your one and maybe only spot for baseball here. So
they talk about it on the Discord sometimes, and I just have to zone out. I don't know.
All right, and that's it, Jared.
All right, Kyle. You feeling a little emo today? Because I feel like we got to go for it. Ohio's very own Hawthorne Heights. The name of the song is "Ohio is for Lovers." Guys, put some black on. Maybe put some black nail polish on. We're going back to 2005, 2006. We're going emo. We're going emo to end this episode. Once again, this is Hawthorne Heights, Ohio's for Lovers, ending today's show. And with all of that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support your local podcasters. Once again, this is Hawthorne Heights.
What year did you say, Jared?
I think I said like 2005, 2006?
2004.
Really? I guess. Yeah.
2004.
Well, see, here's the thing. That song became popular when we were in college. So therefore, in my mind, so we graduated high school in 2004. So therefore, anything that happened after high school couldn't have happened in 2004. And I understand logically why that's wrong, because you graduate in the first half of the year and then like a whole other half of the year happens. But yeah. But anyway, like at the beginning of the show, this is where we play music, but we can't do that on YouTube. So if you want to hear the music, you have to listen on our actual podcast feed. And this is bonus YouTube content. The
Couple of former Buckeye wideouts doing really well today. Devin Smith, one day after signing a contract, makes a great catch, and Johnny Dixon doing things with the Cowboys right now.
Yeah.
How about that?
Honestly, this isn't. If you're actually getting a lot of snaps in the last preseason game, it's because they're not expecting to. They're showing off for other teams, probably. Is honest. They're trying to put some stuff on some film for some other teams, especially in regards to Devin Smith. I don't see him making the final 53. I have no idea what the I have no idea what the situation is around Johnny Dixon that would. But I just don't know. But hey, all the best. I hope all the best for him.
Yep.
No sorries needed.
Right.
Although we are
Hope
about
you're
to
good.
end the
You just missed some baseball talk. That's all.
I knew what the response was going to be before he said
it. But it was just Little League World Series.
It was a simple acknowledgement that the Little League World Series is a thing that's currently happening.
Yeah.
All
right, Jared.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's end today's episode.
Yes. Once again, I would like to thank Hawthorne Heights for ending today's show. And I would like to, once again, thank the Iron Bean Coffee Company for sponsoring today's show. Let's see. We did some medium roast. We did a light roast. They also have flavored coffees. So you can go check out the website for some flavored coffees if that's how you want to do it. But I'm going to talk about some dark roast coffees. There's the Fierce, which is 100% Arabica beans. There is the Rocco. The Rocco also available in medium. You can get it in dark. But it's still a unique Ethiopian natural. There's the Thor, which is like a medium dark. But if you want a dark, then you could go with the Odin. And let's see, there's the Drink from the Skull of Your Enemy. This one, I really like this one. It's thick. It kind of has like notes of like cedar and tobacco. It's real interesting. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it at first, but it's actually great. It's also got like some wine and spice notes in there. It's very good. There's the Fear No Evil, which isn't even a dark roast. It's a black roast. It's void of all light. It's got the sheen of polished armor. There's the Integrity, which is their flagship dark roast coffee. If like maybe you're an espresso drinker, then there you go. That's your go-to. They have that. And like I said, a bunch of flavored coffees that I didn't have time to go over today. So if you want to check those out, you can check those out by going to ironbeancoffee.com. Once again, that is Iron Bean Coffee, America's local coffee roaster.
This episode was also brought to you by our good friends over at the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. Their site might be down, but their barbecue truck is still on fire. Be sure to check out where
in a good way.
In a good way.
It's not the truck. The truck isn't on fire. The grill that they pull behind the truck is on fire. Just so we're clear.
Yes.
The truck is safe and everyone's fine.
Check out where him and his food truck are heading to next over at the Mad Canadian social medias on Twitter or Facebook. They'll be in Cary, Ohio, Friday dinner time, Wednesday in Cary, Thursday they'll be in Upper Sandusky for dinner time, and Friday at lunchtime they'll be in Findlay, Ohio, up by the Millstream Credit Union on Fostoria Avenue. Yeah, check out the social media to find out where him and his food truck are heading to next. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, where they are now the official barbecue of the Cary High School Blue Devils.